like travelling by tube at night. It's always freaked me out. All those tunnels burrowing through the earth, punching through the history of London, delving through spoil heaps, mass burials and plague pits. Human rubbish and death insidiously oozing into those grimy circular tunnels, tiled like the biggest public toilet in the world. I always imagine I'm just about to be chased down those circular tunnels by a bloody werewolf or a mob of skinheads. My job as a chef means quite a few late finishes, and my late night travel options are the tube or, even bloody worse, the night bus. It also means I've got a legitimate reason for being in possession of knives. Well, it's past midnight and here I am again. I should have been home hours ago. There's a nasty bug doing the rounds at work, and with it being Halloween, it was busier than normal, so I had to stay late. Late enough to be stood on this stuffy, dusty platform. Feet crunching slightly on the gritty ground, pacing slowly to pass the time, the air with all that dead, stifled feel to it. Oh, hello. I'm not alone now. A woman, obviously been to some sort of party in costume, perhaps a cat, and a little worse for wear. Oh, she's pretty, all legs and heels, and alone. Now pretending that she's not seen me. She glances in my direction once and then looks away. Obviously doesn't want to know. She doesn't want to engage, and I don't blame her. Woman out alone in the small hours. Easy me, I could be anyone. Rapist, murderer, mugger, take your pick. She has no way of knowing who she is sharing the platform with. Oh, she's getting her phone out. Silly girl, written me off as harmless. You should be paying more attention to your surroundings, my dear. Let's play a little game. Let's see how close I can get to her with her back turned before she notices, before it's too late. Slowly, slowly. She is really pretty, totally oblivious. I'm so close behind her now. I can smell her perfume. Oh, she smells delicious. Her hair is up, I like that, and I can see two little curls hanging down the back of her neck. I wonder how smooth that skin is. My outstretched fingers are inches away from the nape of her neck. Her head is bowed and she is totally engrossed, scrolling away on her phone. I feel my lips curl up in a smile. This is almost too easy. Oh. Her shoulders just visibly stiffened. Her left hand slides to a pocket. Her movement stopped as she sensed me. Let's just ease away slowly, quietly. See, she's resumed scrolling. The hand pulls out a tissue and she delicately blows her nose. Tissue back in her pocket. Shall I take her now, here on this platform? Too many cameras. But then again, there will be only that one fat lazy oaf of a guard sat on his fat lazy backside in the office, a good 2 flights of stairs away. Oh yes, I've done my homework here. I know just how many staff are working at night and just how long it takes for a person to get from the security office to the platform. I also know all the nooks and crannies, anonymous doorways leading off the main tunnels for maintenance and engineering access. The ones that are so easy to unlock. The ones that nearly everyone appears to have forgotten about. You see, I've played down here before on several occasions now, totally undetected in the dark. No one heard the screams or smelt the rotting blood, or found the body parts. Good practice for work, actually. My butchery skills are quite the envy of the kitchen. No one can fillet a tenderloin so neatly as me. Easy to work on a beef carcass when I was field dressing a woman the night before. One of the hardest things was finding a discreet supply of clean water down there. Slit open a human body and what comes out changes from slippery and juicy to sticky and a right pain to wash off within a couple of hours. I couldn't really emerge back into the thronging mass of commuters looking like I've been in a car accident despite how good it smells and tastes. I just got to blend in and be on my way, get to play another day. Anyway, back to business, still engrossed in her phone. I start my approach again. She cocks her head and sighs. Slowly my hand inches towards that smooth, swan-like neck. A sudden blur of movement. Her left hand, a flash of silver, swipes past my throat. I drop to my knees, hot wetness down my front. Then the platform rushes up to my face with a smack. My vision starts to blur. I turn my face, blood pooling around my cheek. It feels warm. I feel the vision. She crouches down and smiles. Her lips are the same colour as the blood. Reptilian eyes crinkle in amusement. Game over, shithead, she whispers as the true predator of the underground straightens up, giggles and clips away back into the darkness. There they were again, congregating on the street corner, multiplying, dividing like cells or spreading out like a virus. It was only a mirror of what they've done throughout the country, though, he thought, throughout the world, in fact, they'd taken over. How had this happened? Damned if he knew, but someone was to blame. Frank Osborne peeked out at them from his hiding place behind the wall, fingertips brushing against rough brickwork. Just to look at 'em, he said to himself. It was a disgrace that the youth of today should be reduced to this, to something so primal, something that scared the crap out of him if he was being honest. More figures joined the handful at the bus stop, smoke rising from beneath those hoods as cigarettes were handed around, probably drugs. Laughter cut through the air, deep and alien. It had been bad enough that they wore caps going through that awful rap phase, but the way kids like that dressed today was so much more disturbing. Frank squinted but still couldn't see their faces, yet surely that was the point. They were of differing sizes, some probably even as young as 10 or 11, but there was something about the masking of those features that made him shiver. The only light coming from an overhead street lamp not far away, filling the hoods with shadows. Frank tried to control his breathing but couldn't. He'd been trying since the underground car park where he'd spotted the first couple of them. Damn it, why did he ever agree to those late meetings in the city? Because of the money, that's why. Because it paid for his meals in those fancy restaurants, his place in the country, going back to his roots, his expensive car. But where was that car right now? It was back there, still in the basement of the multi-story. Wrong place, wrong bloody time. He felt like he was being watched even as he got out of the lift and made his way across the enormous concrete arena. Past pillars and posts, ideal for lurking behind. Oh, just being silly, he told himself, transferring his briefcase to the other hand and reaching for his car key. Ready to press that button and undo the locks as soon as he was in range. His was virtually the only car there, and as soon as he had a line of sight, he'd almost pressed the button, and that's when Frank heard the noise, the sound of someone moving, trainers squeaking, the swish of jacket material. Quick, indistinct flashes between the posts, the Admittedly, crap lighting in that place began to flicker, then dim. Frank had sped up his pace, pointing and shooting invisible beams to his car. Nothing happened. The closer he got. No beep, nothing. He was practically meters away from the lonely vehicle now and still no response. There was a shuffling behind him and he turned around, dropping his key where it clattered to the floor. Then there was more flickering of the lights, then they dimmed to almost black. When they came back on, he was granted a quick glimpse, a hooded figure rising just above the wall of the next level. He drew a breath, stepping back and crushing the key fob underfoot. Shit, he spat, staring down at the shattered remains. When he looked up again, he saw another hooded figure across the way. First one, then two. There'd be more soon, he knew that. Frank turned and raced for the car, tugging on the handle, but knowing that it would never give without the key. Footsteps behind him now, the lights flickered again. He spun around again, back pressed up against his car. The lights were failing and one of the hooded shapes approached, hands in pockets, probably clutching unseen weapons, creeping forward, laughing that throaty laugh. Frank let out a little yelp, holding his briefcase up like a shield, then he spun and swung it against the glass of the car window. How he was going to start it, even if he could get inside, was anyone's guess. The glass held, it didn't crack or shatter, and so instead he threw the case in the direction of the last hoodies he'd seen. But the youth had gone. Frank's case struck the concrete floor, breaking open and spewing out papers everywhere. That deal he'd been brokering so much just now litter on the ground. More noises and dimming of lights. If they went out completely, he'd be screwed. Frank made a decision and ran, drawing his phone out of his pocket as he did so, heading for the nearest exit. Predictably, down here, there's not going to be a signal, and as he burst through the doors into an open stairway, he saw a CCTV camera in the corner. Manically, Frank waved his hands. Help me! Help me! Where the hell were the security people? Couldn't they see what was going on? The lights in here were useless as well, so Frank swallowed hard and began climbing the stairs, desperate to find a real exit. He heard the door open below him and the sound of trainers squeaking on those stairs echoed upwards, more than 2 or 3 pairs, surely. He let out a sigh of relief as he came to the door that opened onto the street. Frank slammed it behind him, searching for something to bar it with and finding a nearby piece of wood to jam under the handle. Oh, he knew it wouldn't hold him off for long. Frank tried his phone again, still no service. It wasn't that much lighter outside, and at dusk this city appeared strange and unfamiliar. Everything looked so different than it did in the daytime. In fact, he barely recognised the place as he set out into it, searching for a police station or just someone who might be able to help him. But the area seemed deserted. Everyone else had more sense than to be out here come night time. This city at night is owned by the Hoodies. As he went up one street and down another, he saw more evidence that the Hoodies had taken over. They were everywhere, seemingly on every corner. The gangs he'd always been frightened of ever since he'd attended university as a teenager. Moving from a small country village to a city just like this one. No, not like this. Never like this. There was a different kind of thug back then, nothing quite so terrifying as they are now, but bad enough. They'd evolved over the years, it seemed, from rebellious teens to these monsters. They were everywhere he turned, the city flooded with them, even the roads as they cruised around in stolen cars. Frank even tried waving at a few more surveillance cameras, but there had been no response, no sirens in the distance, no sign of any police anywhere, let alone a station. The average person was supposed to be caught on camera about 300 times a day, weren't they? And people didn't realise that? So somebody had to be monitoring this shit going on, or were they scared off as well? Frank yanked off his tie, pulled his coat tighter around himself to hide the designer suit he was wearing, attempt to hide what he was. He was prey, a wildebeest being hunted by lions. Maybe he could get away with looking like a homeless person or something, but he didn't intend on being here that long. He wasn't planning on staying a moment longer if he could help it, especially now the darkness had well and truly fallen. His phone still wasn't working, so all he could do was keep moving, avoiding these predators as best he could, hoping against hope that they hadn't got his scent in their nostrils. Now, what seemed like hours later, he stumbled on another band of them at this bus stop, which they'd appropriated and trashed. Frank watched them for as long as he could stomach until one suddenly turned and stared in his direction. "Shit," he said again, retreating. Running back along the street, the squeaking footfalls trailed him yet again. He dodged up the nearest alley, a shortcut to get away, almost stumbling into the bins there. But before he even got halfway down it, he realised his mistake. They were there waiting for him at the other end, just one to begin with, then 2, 3, 4... They were outlined by the street lamps beyond, the inside of their hoods jet black. He spun around, but the hoodies from that bus stop who'd just been chasing him had cut off that escape route. Frank was trapped, finally and inevitably. He began to shiver as they entered the narrow space between buildings. Frank cried out for help, knowing he wouldn't get any, and as the closest hoodie approached, Frank screamed in frustration, hand going to his pocket in a familiar action, but knowing also that he'd find no hidden weapon there to help him, not this time. Then he was face to face with it, looking into that smoking blackness under the hood, and the blackness looking back into him, into his soul, into his memories. Memories. A succession of images filled his skull of a time when he'd been forced to run before, spooked by some hoodies in a car park, not dissimilar to tonight. He'd wound up lost in the city, just like tonight, down an unfamiliar, isolated street. He sensed a presence behind him, just like tonight. He saw a glimpse of the hood and he reacted at the time, bringing out a blade that he carried for protection. The youth he stabbed was no more than 16. He died in his arms that night so long ago. And then Frank heaved the youth into some bins, wiping the knife and tossed that in too. And he was grateful back then for the fact that there were no CCTV cameras around. How he'd run from that scene, pulling his coat tighter around him. And later the news on TV, the papers, headlines about the kid, a model student found dead. That kid had even been an altar boy, for Christ's sake. He was just taking a shortcut home, that's all, just wrong place, wrong time. Time, that's what this stranger had been asking. "Do you have the time, mate?" Now Frank witnessed his own demise again, how he'd used another blade to end it all, racked with guilt. Except it would never end, would it? He'd be made to pay for what he'd done. He'd try wiping his memory every time, but what he did back then always came back to haunt him. It could never be erased. Frank wept, gazing into the darkness that was the hoodie's face, the emptiness there, the heat and smoke emanating from it, recognising who the true monster was. Knowing also why this place was so strange and surreal, the scene of a million different scenarios played out time and time again. It belonged to them, the hoodies. It was their city, their world. They'd taken over. How had it happened? Damned if Frank knew, but actually Frank did know, didn't he? Someone was definitely to blame. And that someone was Frank Osborne. The dark road, the bushes and trees on either side, shrouded in mist, all looked the same. I strained my eyes, searching the night for something familiar, something I can grasp. Then the road bends slightly, dips a little, and that's when I see the light. It has a warm orange glow, and I know that I must reach it. If I can reach the light, everything will be fine. I stagger through the mist, trying to remember what happened. A cold wind tugs at the branches of the trees and scatters the autumn leaves. I sense movement behind me and spin around, but see nothing. I hurry towards the light, confused as it fragments into 1,000 glimmering specks dancing on the horizon. How long have I been walking? The leaves crunch beneath my feet as I hasten along the side of the road. Then a twig snaps behind me. I stopped abruptly and hear a leaf rustle before silence falls. I look round. Is that a shadow? A darker shade of black against the night. I step up my pace, desperate now to reach the light. Walking, I hear sounds behind me. When I stop, they stop. When I move forward, they start up again. I hurry forward, sure I feel eyes burning into my back. I break into a run, not slowing until I reach the edge of town. As I head towards the houses, I see the source of the points of light, and it's not what I expected. They shimmer in 100 carved pumpkins, orange teeth casting strange dark shapes on the wood of porches and the grey wetness of paving stone. The shadow behind me forgotten. I wonder at the intricate forms of dark and light dancing before my eyes. Not sure now which way to go. Like a moth that believes itself soaring towards the moon only to find itself trapped in a house full of dusty light bulbs. I pause a while, unsure what to do next. I cringe as a shriek pierces the night and footsteps grow and echo in my ears. Excited voices are coming closer. I cower behind the tree, uncertain to what's going on. The trick-or-treaters pass and I breathe easy. I move on and hear that crunch of trampled leaves behind me. The shadow, how could I have forgotten about the shadow? I scour the street and think I see movement in the bushes to the right, and I move off fast. More youths are approaching and I look for somewhere to hide, but it's too late. They're upon me, laughing and shouting. "Nice costume," one of them says. I just lower my eyes and keep moving. They pass by, staring at me. From all around, the twinkling lights distract me once more and my mind wanders. I can't remember how I got here. I recall walking along the side of the road with trees and bushes either side. I close my eyes for a moment and try to see with my mind's eye. Glimpses of road, of trees and bushes, but they rush by so quickly. I'm not walking, I'm driving. Of course, my car. The '69 Chevy convertible that I lovingly restored with my own bare hands. Smoothing every screw, every piece of metal into its rightful place. I was so proud. It took me 5 years of weekends to turn the rusted Hulk into a thing of beauty. It's cerulean blue and white, more worthy of an angel than of an ungainly, unspecial man like me. Where's my car? Oh, now I remember. I had to leave my car behind, so that's what I'm doing now. I'm looking for a phone to get some help to my car, but my cell phone is gone. I must have lost it. Must have dropped it getting out of the Chevy. I can't remember. Okay, I must focus. I can't be standing here in the middle of the road. A scream brings me out of my thoughts and I look down at the whimpering child dressed as a ghost, its face as pale as the sheet that's draped over its body. The child drops the plastic lantern it's carrying and wails at me, it's bloody trembling. I reach down to comfort it, but the child's mother pulls it away, cursing me loudly. Then 2 teenage boys and a girl run past me. The girl is wearing small, sort of red devil's horns, and she reminds me of someone. Someone I loved or love still. Someone I should remember. Then I get these broken images of a woman's smile form in my mind. She's got bright green eyes and a wisp of dark blonde hair blowing in the wind as fields and trees stream by behind her. I'm struggling to put the shattered pieces together, and then these kids are shouting and screaming, waving plastic severed limbs in front of my face, and then they just disappear down a side street. What am I doing? I can hear a cat hissing at me from across the street and I just move on. Where am I going? Oh yes, I'm going to find a house. So many to choose from. And ring a doorbell. And then what? I'm ringing a doorbell, but the sound of movement inside me makes me panic. I can't remember what it was that I wanted. I run behind the house and listen as the homeowner looks up and down the street and says, "Hello, anyone there?" before going back in and locking the door. I grasp desperately at bits of thoughts and I search in my mind for what I'm meant to be doing, for where I'm meant to be, but all around me the lights flicker and purr and pumpkin eyes are mesmerising, disorientating. Where am I? I remember my car. I need to call a garage to get my Chevy off the side of the road and get it fixed, so that I can drive to the girl with the dark blonde hair and green eyes. Alice. Alice is waiting for me at her parents' house. We're supposed to see a double bill at the local cinema, Halloween and Friday the 13th, or is it The Evil Dead and the Fog? I struggle with the mist that's rising before me, getting into my eyes and obscuring the lights. What am I doing? Hang on, I need to focus. Oh yeah. I need to find a house and ring a doorbell. I need to phone a garage and get the Chevy fixed so I can take Alice to see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Or is it The Exorcist? I concentrate hard and push the mist away. I walk to the house with the largest number of pumpkins lining the steps. I hear the mist is weakest, the lights are fighting it, keeping it at bay, and I ring the doorbell. The woman's smile fades and she looks startled, but then she smiles again. Your costume, she tells me, is very gruesome, and aren't you a little too old to be trick-or-treating, she says. I open my mouth to speak, but I forgot what it is that I want to say. I rack my brain. Alice. The woman turns away and I feel a tear running down my cheek. The woman returns holding a box of chocolates. I can't recall. I raise my hand, pleading for patience, pleading for her to wait a while I remember pleading for help. The woman's face changes. What's that smell? Her look of disgust distorts her mouth. The box slips from her hand and chocolates fall in all directions. She's staring at my extended hand and then she starts to scream. I follow this woman's gaze and my hand has burst into flames, orange and yellow, licking up my arm. I look down at my body. I'm a mass of open wounds and charred flesh. Still, I burn. Then the mist thickens before my eyes until I no longer see that screaming woman. A wind starts to blow, whipping the mist into a spinning, howling vortex. Something cold holds me, strangely soothing against my burning skin. The shadow is whispering in my ear, telling me not to scream, telling me that nerve endings have burnt away so it doesn't really hurt. Hush now, it won't be much longer. I hurtle through the mist. The wind howls a crescendo and stops suddenly. There is a jolt. My muscles spasm like that second between sleeping and waking when you think you've been falling, but when you finally crash, it's into your own soft, familiar bed and you never really fell at all. The mist clears and then, for the briefest moment, all is still, all is silent. And then the burning begins again. I'm in my Chevy, speared to my seat by blackened metal. My hand burns on the steering wheel, my body burns in my seat, my world is flame. I open my mouth to scream, but the shadow's words resound in my ears. I look up and see it watching me through the windscreen. Behind it there is light. Not the distracting orange glow that led me astray, but brilliant white light. Light that I long for more than anything in the world. Anything except, perhaps, Alice. Here's the trailer for my website.
This is William Friedkin. Don't panic. If your screen starts to bleed, you are about to witness Bleeding Critic.
I'm the anonymous horror film critic, the creator and narrator of immersive scary stories. BleedingCritic.com is the interactive horror platform where horror fans have a voice and are actually seen. Horror Memories. This is where you talk about that moment from any film that really damaged you. And there's more interaction for you with Horror Therapy. Share that moment from your real life where something scared or terrified you. I like short horror films, especially ones that don't get the attention they deserve. So if you've made a short horror film, send it to me. I'll even add a special filmed introduction. You can watch the short horror films I've chosen right now. On to my horror content. Scary Stories UK is my YouTube channel, so all my YouTube videos are here as well, and they will freeze your spine. Check out my interviews and photo galleries, and watch my spoiler-free film reviews. And when you see any of the films I've reviewed, you can add your own rating. Follow me across social media. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Scary Stories UK. Follow and interact with me on Twitter @BleedingCritic and on Instagram. Do a bit of retail therapy with clown merch. There's 5 designs of my face splattered over 50 different products. And Patreon is a way you can support my interactive horror platform and my YouTube channel from as little as $5 a month. During the time you've watched this video, I've scuttled along your ear canal into your skull and I ain't leaving.